All right, so now we're gonna hand off one of these microphones and we're gonna do about 15 to 20 minutes of anyone in the room that wants to ask a question. Once we finish this, we will call it. We will break out into breakout sessions. When we get to that point, we'll introduce the different stations, who's gonna be there to available to answer any of the questions you may have related to it. So I've got a lot of eyes out there that are going to help me identify who our first question is going to be. Jenny here with the microphone is going to be going to people in the order we call them. So.
Hi there, my name is Nick. First of all, great presentation. I'm sure there's a lot of work that's been put into it, so I appreciate it. My question for the roundabout, it seems pretty solid and safe and things like that. Is there any sort of statistics when it comes to like winter driving? Ice, that sort of things, any difference between the sort of standard signalized intersection versus the roundabout?
So my background, I did spend some time in the public agency side too, and maintenance, and they are challenging, but so are signalized intersections. Kind of coming back to the speed aspect of it, that again, on normal driving conditions, you're going to want to be going through that roundabout about 15, 20 miles per hour. You see there's snow and ice up there, maybe the plow hasn't hit it just yet. Probably going a little bit slower, but I mean, it tops again 15, 20. The signalized intersection still has the potential of going faster through it. So it actually does help with speed staying down and maintenance getting out there that, again, it'll be designed that plow trucks can get through there easily. It should be okay.
The other thing to add to that is just the approach angles. So the angles leading into that we have some pretty robust standards for that. So our new intersections are relatively gentle approaching in through the intersections, but making the turn, yes, you'll have to slow down.
Okay, so let me just clarify something. So if you're coming from Little America, there's a light, then there's going to be a new crosswalk for truckers, then a new roundabout, then a new light across from the bluffs, then a new roundabout at 4th and Butler. That is a lot in like a quarter of a mile. It's going to take forever to get through there.
So there is the light, that's the ADOT interchange, the on-off ramps there.
Right
at Little America. There will be those mid-block crossings. Of course, those have to be activated to be whatever. And those will be the flashing beacons. So those are not red lights, those are orange lights. So those are advisory. So they tell you to slow down and you stop when someone's in the crosswalk, but when people are not there, you may proceed through the intersection. There will be the roundabout at Harold Ranch in Butler. The Peak Point intersection, which is there by the bluffs, that will not be a signal. That will be an uncontrolled intersection. So you'll be able to make right or left.
With 1,500 people coming and going from there, that will be uncontrolled?
They won't all come to that. We model both of those, but those will be distributed across the intersection.
But that will be at least a crosswalk.
There will be a mid-block crossing.
And then a roundabout at 4th and Butler.
Correct.
That is a lot of infrastructure in a very short. Don't forget the bus. In a very short area. So will there be sidewalks along all of that, and will it come and connect to Sonoma Heights neighborhood? A lot of things just sort of stop at Sonoma Heights. How will that be integrated?
The short answer is yes. There will be connected sidewalks from I-40 all the way through to Sonoma Heights and so on. There will be a transition, obviously, when we go from that wide lane back to on-street bike lanes and the more typical cross-section. So there will be a transition, both sides.
Hi, I have a question about your raising the grade of 4th Street and Butler 6 or 7 feet. How are you going to do that and still maintain traffic flow while you're doing the raising of that grade? And I have one other question. Is there just a flashing light at a crosswalk if you do a roundabout at 4th and Butler? And are the cars then expected to notice that and then stop for any pedestrian traffic? Or is there a red light?
So thank you for the question. The first one is that we haven't gotten to design, and we will be doing this construction manager at risk, which means we bring a contractor on early in design to answer those exact questions. So we can figure out the construction phasing logistics of how we maintain traffic. So at this time, any future closures or other impacts are not well understood at this point. As it relates to your other question for the flashing beacons, at a minimum, they will be those flashing yellow beacons. We will have to evaluate the need of whether or not they need to be red flashing lights. That will be part of our evaluation.
Thank you. Could you put the video back to the drawing that you had of the commercial properties, the private, the developed, to be developed, that one? Thank you. There, okay, thanks. Nick, you said that you all have met with commercial property owners regarding Fourth and Butler alternatives. And so did you meet with the property owners of the pink property on the same side as Sonoma Middle School? Did you meet with them? Were they included in the meeting?
They were not, however, they went through the development / entitlement process. So that development was coordinated both with this project in mind.
Right. So my property is right there and I'm a private owner who's right on Butler. And gosh, you guys didn't talk to me, but you talked to commercial. I'm sort of not happy about that. But here's my questions. But I wanted to talk about that because I'm not happy about that. Where do school kids walking to school fit in that roundabout at Fourth and Butler, 6 to 12-year-olds? I mean, how are we gonna get them across safely? And are we not gonna walk them? Because you said you've got vehicular operations, but what about school kids walking with 2 feet, hopefully making it across safely to school on either side of those streets? And, are there gonna be any egresses for that development in the pink there on Butler? That one, right there, are there gonna be egresses for them onto Butler?
Yes,
Okay,
on the south side of that property, so the north side of Butler, and here, there will be I believe it is a right in, right out only.
so they brought in a whole lot of filter there, ton of filter, which is gonna raise the elevation of the buildings above the level that was approved at zoning. Is that part of this at all? Or do I have to take that to zoning? Yeah, okay. All righty. So if you could answer that question though about kids walking and then involving owners like me. Thanks.
I'll answer about the children crossing, and then I'd love to talk afterwards if you don't mind. We can talk on this. But so for the children crossing, looking at these crossings, crosswalks, that as Jeremy pointed out earlier, that the conditioned crossing at a signal versus a roundabout, they are different fields, there's different engagement. Yes, there's different users out there that will use it. The signalized intersections, even if it is the 5x5, is still crossing 5 lanes of traffic. Yes, there may be a red light active. Yes, there's going to be stripe on the ground with a little walk symbol going. People are still going to be making right turns and potential for lefts and potential for red light too. With the roundabout, the largest crossing at a time is 2 lanes. So it'll be 2 lanes, and then potentially you put a challenge, right? So they're smaller overall crossings, less to look for, and it does help out. So there are pros and cons to both those types. But again, we're looking at the utmost in signal warning for drivers that someone is trying to cross. If it is the roundabout, otherwise there'll be a signal. And then having all the enhancements for activating the signal, audible tones and crossing.
Yeah, I have a question about the, I have a question about the pedestrian crosswalks. My understanding is that there's only 2 of them. There's one at the Sunset roundabout and there's one at the other roundabout. So with that, there's only 2 pedestrian crosswalks.
So in here, it may be a little bit small to see that the kind of black dotted sections will all be pedestrian and bike crossings. And these will all have the signals for them as well. So we have all 4 legs at the Butler-Fourth intersection. We will have a mid-block crossing, north-south at Peak Point, as well as an east-west crosswalk at that intersection. all four at the Butler and Harold Ranch intersection, and then the mid-block crossing north-south at the Perry stop near Little America.
So a pedestrian either has to cross at the roundabout or at Peak Street? Yes.
Yes.
And how long is that road, one end, the other?
I believe the overall project limits from I-40 to about Sonawa Heights was just over a mile. So these were coming out to about quarter-mile increments, or a little bit less.
I'm just curious, Harold Ranch Road is not paved, is that in the works? If it's worth putting a roundabout in, are you gonna pave that road?
That is not currently. We will do the realignment to tie into existing. But as far as paving Harold Ranch Road further to the south. The roundabout largely serves the function of truck U-turns from Little America. So we've got we're gonna do question and answers for about 7 more minutes, and then we're gonna just transition to breakouts.
We really need more than that.
We will be available to.
No, we need the group to hear these questions. There you go.
Yes.
Okay, who's, next question?
I've got a comment and then a question. For the comment, I do prefer the roundabout design. And I prefer the raised crosswalk to slow vehicles and make the crossing safer. I am disappointed that you wrote off the 2x2 roundabout with channelized rights. I just feel the overemphasis on level of service is frustrating. It's a flawed metric that has a huge cost in terms of human lives. I'm sure you're already aware, but Arizona has one of the most dangerous transportation systems among developed countries. And as for the question, I'm curious to what degree did you consider shifts in transportation mode, like more frequent bus service, more biking and walking, more carpooling, as a way to increase throughput instead of just tacking on vehicle lanes? The city already committed to enabling these kinds of shifts, so I'm curious to what degree that played a part in your analysis.
So thank you for the question. That's a good question. And we struggled with that. How do you evaluate all these options? I think we're very well aware of what the goals for the city currently are. And we had a lot of hard conversations about that. I think we've done a pretty decent job of supporting a lot of those facilities needed to support mode shift and so on. I think there are opportunities in the future. I don't know what will happen as it relates to our carbon neutrality plan and so on over the next 10, 15, 20 years. But if we make the progress that we hope to make, I think that what we're building today offers a lot of opportunities to support that, such as bike-only lanes or other things like that. So that's a difficult thing. We wrestled with that for quite some time.
And just to add on to that real quick, that's why we discussed the phasing approach and we'll be bringing that to council, that this is anticipating growth. You saw all the developments that are underway, that have gone through planning and zoning, that are coming up, but there's still the uncertainty of the future. If we could do a phased smaller intersection and then later have to build out if we need to, I think a lot of people would support that.
Okay, my question is, this has been going on for a long time. I live in Sonawa Heights. In this, they talked about raising the intersection. They talked about developing the intersection for at least 10 years now. And this was supposed to be done years ago. So back to his question on timeline, like we need to kind of know so we can kind of plan our lives. Is this gonna start in 8 months, 10 months, 1 year? Traffic is really bad right now. And you can hardly get in and out of our subdivision when school's coming and going. And then number 2 is we do have Sonawa Middle School and Knowles Elementary, which I fought to get that speed zone. It's not, why isn't it a school zone? My kids have walked, they're done walking to school because they've grown up, but I'm fearful for the kids walking to school because people go 45 miles an hour once they come up that hill, 50 miles an hour. They're zipping right past school. And it's very dangerous. I wish you put in a school zone.
Thank you. So for your first question, timeline, at this time, we again, we're trying to do a lot of this light work now, have these conversations now, so that we can make the decisions and move into design. If things proceed smoothly, we could have shovels in the ground sometime in 2024. It would likely be later in 2024. This is likely a multi-season project, so some of the issues, right? How do we raise this intersection? How do we maintain traffic? At this point, we don't have answers, but we understand the need for this project. And we need to keep it moving forward because there's a lot of development coming online. Not just what's there now, but a lot of development coming online in the next 3 to 5 years.
School zone?
School zone, that I'm not the one to speak to that. That is outside this project limits, so I don't have an answer for you. Certainly, we encourage you to reach out to transportation.
Already done.
Yes.
Does anybody know, offense intended, has anybody sat there and watched trucks coming and going out of Little America? Because I'll tell you, my car wouldn't make it, and neither would anybody else that's in this room. They control that whole area. Which is fine, because I live here and I back off and I know, oh, here comes this idiot, they're gonna come out here and just do it. And we have to shove on our brakes and try not to kill each other trying to get through there. So has anybody, I mean, you put in the time for 4th Street in Butler, or 4th, whatever, but have you really sat there for like a whole day?
I have not personally sat there for a whole day. I have been out there. I am aware of the situation. I've observed it.
I mean, it's nuts, and it's a parking lot, so make it a parking lot.
So it is an issue that this project will be working to address, and that is largely the access control that we talked about, to put in, to make it so that they cannot pull
Yeah, but
across.
they control the road. You can put in whatever you want, they control the road. That you're just gonna make the same thing, and poor person that is SOL.
Hi there, I have a couple of comments and questions. Please consider winter road condition treatments. There's all these new stops planned. We had black ice forming at 4 in the afternoon. So people are trying to get the brakes through these multi-stop areas. I see big trouble coming. Number 2, if we see a lot of potential small street crashes, how are we going to remove those crashes quickly so that what seems to be a smooth intersection now is just everybody backed up? Because I think that's a serious one. Last one is Sonoma Heights. Are we going to get a traffic light? Is that part of the scope of the effort?
That is not part of the scope of this project. We end a little bit west of the Sonoma Heights.
Why?
So
Mine
move
goes
limit
right too.
but it's scope. Would be a recommendation from us folks in Sonoma Heights who already struggle mightily, as a couple of our other neighbors here have already specified. Getting out, making a left, hitting somebody, you're doing a quick little cross and hoping you don't get T-boned because you can't see, especially when you got the light coming up early morning.
Right.
Or late in the afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have all the questions or the answers to some of those questions, but certainly encourage you to fill out that survey, make sure those are noted. It's not in our current scope of the project.
Thank you for listening to us. And I want to make a comment first, because I hear this over and over and it's disheartening. But the developers are wagging the tail here. That it is develop here, develop here, develop here. Oh, now what are we going to do about these streets and people? So I won't stop with that comment. The other comment that was that I have that's disconcerting is on the chart where you all scored everything. The 2 lowest scores, there you are pedestrian based. And that worries me now a lot. Now, having said that, I've got a couple of questions. Coming from Summit Park and the townhouses and whatnot, and going down to Butler, is there going to be a sidewalk put in from up there all the way down? I understand from something I read that you guys were gonna fill in the big gully that's there. So I want to know if there's a sidewalk. But at the same time, when you think about all of these developments, and I'm a retired school teacher, so this is close to my heart. And our own daughter got hit, walking to school. And a lot of it, in this particular case, had to do with the sun coming up and you couldn't see. But, are there going to be school bus rides from these different developments, not just coming down Fourth, whatever that development is now across the street at Fourth and Butler, that's way high in the air. And then all of the development that goes down past the animal shelter. There are going to be all kinds of kids. Are they walking? Are they riding bikes? Again, a two, that is sad. Thank you. School bus, transfer trucks. Okay, so winter driving and all of that. What happens when Interstate 40 shuts down and they get off at the transfer trucks, get off at Continental, come down Solier, take a left onto Fourth, and voila, there they are at that intersection. What's going to happen when those things happen? And they happen quite often. It's amazing the amount of transfer trucks that are there. So I think that's it, except the development I can't believe that that's what's leading this. That makes my heart sad, especially added to those twos right there.
So there were a lot of questions there. I'm probably not going to remember all of them. Yes, sidewalks will connect down on both sides of 4th Street, so that connection will be made.
From Summit all the way down.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so there will be sidewalk facilities on both sides of the road on 4th Street down to Butler and connecting over to Cinema Heights.
Buses, are the schools going to still stop and safely, although adds traffic, safely get those kids through that intersection? Otherwise,
Why can't the kids walk?
because of danger.
So busing, obviously we'll have Mountain Line, will be running their routes. FUSD is part of this process. They have been at some of these meetings. That would be a question for FUSD as far as what their future plans for busing are.
The transfer trucks.
Transfer trucks, both 4th Street and Butler are truck routes. So anything that we build has to accommodate these large vehicles, tractor trailers, transfer trucks, you name it. So yes, these intersections, this corridor will need to accommodate those vehicles.
And just the development, I can't believe, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but you said there's more development coming. Oh, my Lord. Where are you gonna put it on top of what's already there? I mean, it's crazy.
So at this point, we didn't speak about this in the presentation, but as many of you probably aware, JW Powell will eventually connect south to 4th Street across over to Pine Canyon. That is largely this future development that's not necessarily captured on this map. And that connection is likely to happen anywhere in the next 5 to 10 years.
Your project is really incomplete without addressing the Snow Heights intersection. Sorry, just had to get that out there. I'm curious about the Harold Ranch roundabout. You are purposely directing semi-truck traffic into that roundabout. Have you studied the Belmont roundabout where trucks who miss a turn into a truck stop apparently get jackknifed there pretty frequently? How will that compare to the roundabout, which is already in existence, pretty almost a failure for that neighborhood?
So yes, we are aware of the roundabout at Belmont. And certainly that is a primary consideration to ensure that we don't end up with operational considerations. There has been a recent change to law as far as how roundabouts utilize or how trucks utilize roundabouts. And I don't know whether Dick came across this.
Thank you, and I did want to use this forum here to get it all out to you too, because it's important to know for this project and anywhere you travel, and frankly, Arizona. Arizona has passed a law that semi trucks have full right of way in roundabouts and may take both lanes. So all passenger vehicles must yield, and that's across the state. That's not City of Flagstaff. I want to let you all know about that, but it is also being considered as part of this project. There will be signs put up, but just letting you all know that trucks by law may take both lanes and roundabouts. So
And I know that initially feels concerning, but that really is bringing law in line with reality. I think if you've driven around about a large truck, they often take multiple lanes. So that change, the signage that needs to come along with it, I think will actually be helpful to reduce those conflicts as we move forward. There obviously will be a transition plan. We didn't talk about this much here, but obviously Flagstaff is relatively new to roundabouts. We've seen several, we're building more. And so we have committed to stepping up our game on the educational front. So we've got roundabout planning that supports Cedar Lockett. And so it's going to be important to work to reach out to the schools there, reach out to neighborhoods, just generally Flagstaff as a community to revisit how roundabouts operate, who yields to who, the general basics of roundabout operations. So that will be something that's running in parallel, not specifically related to this project.
3 points. One is the pedestrian crossing that is not addressed at Sonoma Lanes. We have kids, middle school, used to be high school, and middle school, running across those 4 lanes in the turnoff. It's a hazard. The traffic control has already been mentioned. That has to be addressed. The fact that the lines on the plan stops here and just go, well, you've been like that forever, so that's okay. But down here, we're concerned about that crossing. So, or those crossing. I see a miss here, a huge miss. Number 2, the bus stops west of 4th Street on Butler. Is there a bus lane that they turn out that adds to the width?
Bus stop in the roundabout option, that bus stop would be part of the turn lane.
So it's going to occupy one of the turn lanes. So now we have pedestrian crossings and a huge roundabout. And when JW Powell traffic starts coming through their major intersection, we think this roundabout's going to work. Now, here's my experience. Again, what is real? What is real is small roundabouts with a low amount of traffic does good. There's no problem there. But now you've got a huge amount of traffic, and then you've got pedestrians frustrating those people who are in a race when they get into the roundabout. Unfortunately, that's just the mentality that we're dealing with there. And so we have a real hazardous situation. And so separating pedestrian traffic from the roundabout, I would suggest the roundabout is a bad plan. I see you've got 3 additional points for the roundabout over the controlled traffic. But I believe the controlled traffic, because of weather, because of pedestrian crossing, that is the best solution and going to be the safest, regardless of what I see you having charted out in your plans. So those are the 3 areas. So now Heights being addressed, the bus stop being addressed, and there's no room. We're looking at 100 feet. We don't even have 100 feet. I asked one of the people back here, and he goes, well, we'll have to move the fire hydrants that were put in, what, 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago? So now those got to be moved. This is silly, but here we are. We've got to deal with all that. And so, again, we're going to deal with reality in regards to all this, and we would appreciate that that's the consideration that we get. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
I am going here, we got over to there. Our mic battery is out, so please go down.
I want to thank you guys, because I know when we have these meetings, you just end up being open boy for everybody, because no one's going to be 100% satisfied. Right. And no one's going to tell you, great, you have to tell you about that. So first thing I want to do is thank you that for the next 12 months, I think I can rest comfortably knowing that nobody's going to put in a 6-lane intersection with lights in it anywhere along here. Thank you for the roundabouts. It seems like that's what you're looking for. Oh God, I hope that somebody doesn't trip that up, because putting a big intersection would be terrible. Sorry about that. Over here at the Little America, I realize you got to deal with, the city of Flagstaff letting that development be such a mess. But having to deal with the 4th Street, we call them rapid flashing lights, both north of 66 by Huntington and the one up between 7th and 66. If you put one of those there, you're going to have gridlock all the way back to, I don't know, to 66 going this way and well past Harold Ranch Road this way. And because people don't know what to do, they don't know if they have to stop, people push it, then they don't walk, they don't go fast, some people walk slow, the lights flash forever, long after someone was there. People kind of don't know how to deal with that, what their requirements are. You put that flashing light there, you're so close to that other intersection, you're going to mess up the timing, you know, every time your lights and, you know, whatever that timing is there, you're just gonna have gridlock with that. Talk about any other way to do something other than put one of those flashing lights there. Like an overhead or a tunnel. I mean, I hate the tunnels, I never was ever go in them, but I think the truckers would be okay going through the tunnel. Those would be the people I would think would probably get to the other side, you know, safe and find, try to solve it, whatever. And we thought of anything else besides the flashing light there.
So the only undercrossing that has been considered is actually part of that survey is at the Butler-Fourth intersection. That would be an opportunity to separate.
Doesn't that cut?
It does. There are ways that we can address it. So, but to your point.
Great success with limiting the crossing, not creating more pedestrian crossing, but literally putting up barriers. You cannot cross the street, or you've got to go to the intersection, like your mother told you when you were 2 years old, right? You go to the intersection, you push the light, and you cross with the light. If you don't do that, I have no sympathy. I'm sorry. I'm telling you from a sibling who I watched get killed in front of me doing that. I'm sorry, no sympathy for telling your kids to not walk out in the street. Sorry. So even if you put a don't cross here, a pedestrian cross, and walk way, like a crossing the intersection that was timed with the lights, even that seems so much better than that. Anytime somebody could hit the road, and you thought, has there been anything else? An overhead, even anything?
Jeremy kind of touched on with the Butler-Fourth intersection, when we have grades to help us, that there's something higher, something lower, it's a lot easier to consider a tunnel or a bridge, as you mentioned. And that area is very flat. We have development up against the back of sidewalk, really up against the sidewalk. It's very challenging to look at those there, but we'll look at it anyway. Like, we'll take a look at it. It's probably not going to be a realistic option, but we'll look at it.
I have a simple question. Okay, at the beginning, you called this a minor arterial. I'm just trying to put this in context. What other minor arterial does Flagstaff have? Would you call Milton Avenue a minor arterial?
Yes.
Okay, so can we call this equivalent to say Milton Avenue?
I think reasonable people can disagree, but at the same time, I think that context matters. I don't think that the context here of the development, what's underway, what exists, and what's behind is necessarily in line with Milton. Certainly, this is more in line with other areas along Butler Country Club, other major roadways through town.
I don't know. So when Canyon Del Rio, all these other developments start jumping out onto this, you don't think it's going to be equivalent somewhat to Milton?
I don't know the numbers for Milton to compare.
You don't have a traffic engineer that's come up with these numbers?
We do have a traffic engineer. We have a lot of people that work.
Is that traffic engineer here?
He's hiding in the back. I wouldn't expect him to. I don't know. Jeff, do you think you have numbers? Could you speak to that?
I need a couple projects. Expecting Butler, it's memorized. Butler Road goes from about 30,000 in the south end to about 40,000 cars that I think Butler in this section is quite a bit below.
It was about 24. I think we were saying 24,000.
Exactly. 24,000.
That's my question.
24.
Now.
Me and my wife are one of the people that own one of those businesses that you guys came to me, Nick, spoke a year ago about putting them, the median there. I would like to know how you plan on not hurting our business goals, new 1,500 homes and 300 apartments. How are they gonna be able to get in and out of our store with that median there?
Grocery store.
Butler Mobile.
We are designing left turn lane into your site in the median,
Okay, so you designed left-hand turn from what? Coming off the freeway?
off the freeway, yes.
Okay, so what about my people? My business is 15% in the morning, 50% is the freeway, and 35 is in the afternoon. So they come home and they wanna stop by and grab a pie or something like that. How do you expect them to get on I-40 and go all the way around to Country Club? Or are they gonna go up and put the U-turn up there by the other McDonald's and stuff like that? What are you gonna do? I have no way, I'm gonna lose all that potential business. I'm gonna lose because they can't make a left-hand turn out of our station.
We'll continue working with you on it. I do want to see what is best for the traffic and safety and access to your business, as well as all the businesses out here. Something we have to look at though is, as you well know, and everyone here too, that is a very busy section on that west end. And primarily one of the issues we face is the semi trucks coming out that's been brought up. I think,
Why do you have to put the medium right there? Why don't you put it at the very end of my store and have it go that way with no left-hand turn signs facing Little America and leaving mine open so that people can come and go? Or you can make a left-hand turn lane, you pull out and you can merge into the right and bring an entrance in off of the unbound freeway over there into the store.
as this is all still in scoping, let's get together and hash through some ideas.
Well, you promised like a year ago to talk to me, and this is the first time I've seen you in a year. So you haven't stopped by and talked to me.
And I apologize for that. I took your information over to the city. We've been trying to coordinate, so it's been a centralized effort through the city. But we will be talking to you and soon.
Since we've owned the business, we've generated 20% more income a year. Revenue for this Flagstaff. That's 2 years in a row that we've owned the store, and you're gonna turn around and take all that from us and then more. If we don't get something worked out.
Gentlemen, I know this presentation has been on the city website and gone through it several times. And you just glossed over it to follow up with Curtis. Why isn't there more attention being paid to the business access and the medians at all? We've been talking about intersections, crosswalks. We haven't seen anything about the additional median structure that's going to be blocking businesses. Because of those medians, is it really wise to push all of the semi-truck traffic into an area that is being developed residential? And make them come around and do a U-turn? Isn't it better to keep trucks away from residential neighborhoods and come up with another solution for Little America? And I agree with the person that said the Belmont roundabout. I go through there and I don't know how many times I have seen that entire intersection blocked by a stop truck.
So there should have been more information, I think, showing more of the medians, the lefts, the ones we talked about, just that we're trying to have you all picture in here, and I apologize for that. We did try and pick the high points to try and use our time wisely to try and get through, and one of the biggest pieces going to council at this point, before we go to actual design, vetting of the design, is the alternatives for Butler-Fourth, so we did try to skip forward to that part, so I do apologize for leaving on more detail on the rest of the project. We are looking to minimize left turns through the corridor. I think that's been said already. The roundabout for Butler Herald will actually be located right where the parcel lines go from Black Bart's and the Little America property to the residential. So it'll be on that kind of fringe there is where the roundabout's to be located for Herald Ranch. We are working to restrict the lefts out. There will be no lefts out currently planned in the western section. We're working to see if we can accommodate what needs to happen out there. Throughout the rest of the corridor, from basically Herald to Fourth, the only break in the median is Peak Point. That again, with this corridor out here, we do not expect 50 driveways and 100 feet. That's part of this corridor, building it now, working with the city for development. There are not going to be hundreds of driveways between those two intersections. There really will be that one other major intersection of people.
Yeah, so all those driveways for the new development and the upcoming development, those have all been coordinated with with the city, with this project and so on, to think through what that current access is and what it will be when this project comes through. In the case of this project, as we've talked about, on this western end where we've got existing businesses, Mobile, Black Bart's, Little America, it's a different story. Those enjoy full access currently, and our intent is to make that safer. And of course, we're not done. We haven't actually gone into design. So what has been shared with you are conceptual. We're not done there. So we will continue that conversation as it relates to access for business.
We do plan on maintaining full access, rights, lefts, and ins and outs.
Not at all locations, no. But we will have to evaluate each one of those on an individual basis. So no decisions have been set in stone related to that. So we will continue to work through that process.
Thanks for putting this together, and I wanted to just let you know, it's kind of working. Is that I have been living at Summit Park. I've owned a unit there for about 20 years and seen the place change drastically. And one of the things that I really appreciated in the past was the ability to kind of access a bunch of trails. Maybe they weren't really official, but I'm a big walker, hiker, biker, and I have dogs. And so, and I commute to NEU all the time. We've already talked about a lot of the concerns there with traffic and all these things. Well, one thing that I know that maybe a couple people have mentioned are places where people can cross perhaps over traffic. Because the one thing that is really challenging, even now, as a person with dogs or just without dogs, is to be able to cross the intersection now as it is, even with the light, due to everything that's been going on. People are familiar with that. And frankly, I would really, really like to see an overpass. I think it's possible, just for a wider crossway. I'm not talking about a wildlife overpass, which actually would be rad to be able to connect, because it's a portion of a huge migratory pathway. And we have a nature loop over there, just south of 4th and Butler, that I still would like to really access. I think it really adds to the quality of life for people living in that area. And as development continues, I would really appreciate the city connecting all of the dead end trails that we have. And right now, the 2 sidewalks that we have lead to dead ends. And it's frustrating and it's very unsafe. And I know that I understand the concerns that y'all have with being able to build with the culvert and with the apartment, I think it's West or whatever apartments and some other apartments that are going in. But I would really appreciate a more concerted effort using novel engineering, really, really tying together the whole international dark sky, the STEM city, the very progressive, very forward-thinking city that we have, and people that we have in the community, whether or not they're on serving city council. But I really would like to see something novel, something new. This is an opportunity for Flagstaff to shine and to really address some of these concerns.
Thank you for the comments. These are the things that we struggle with, right? At the end of the day, we can build anything. We just can't build everything, right? There are limits. Separated crossings present some real challenges. They're extremely expensive. Everything that we build needs to be ADA accessible. And when we do separate it,
A little bit more, that things will safer.
Yes.
Safer.
Understood. So there are a lot that go into that as far as the impacts to private property that's adjacent. All of these things take space. So there's a lot of considerations. I think we all can recognize and want to do better. So I think.
And they also are communicating with those private individuals to see if they're willing to give you commitments to the city.
Hi, I know we touched on traffic briefly a while ago. And I'd like to know, much of your planning must be based on some sort of projected traffic load that we're gonna face. And do you have that data?
Right, so the traffic volume is based on 2045 traffic volumes. A 20-year build out, putting this project in lasting 20 years. Now, one of the biggest questions is, okay, that's great, 2045. When do we get there? Is it a straight line? When is this happening? We are working to try and build a rough estimate timeline to take to council. Please stay tuned on it. But we are seeing a lot of that traffic higher, 70 to 90%. I don't have that exact number right now by 2035. So a lot of these developments, as we saw, have pulled permits. They're constructing, they're building, they're going through planning and zoning. They are moving. Now, they don't sell all lots on the first day, we know that, but by 2035, we're expecting a lot of that traffic to already be here for 2045.
So 70 to 90% more than what we're experiencing right now. Yeah.
No. Yeah, let me clarify on it. So the 2045 volume is an all-inclusive volume, number of vehicles. That includes today plus the growth to 2045. So right now we're sitting at about 46% of the total volume to 2045, and we expect to be up to about 70, 80 by 2035. So it's roughly double, yes.
Okay.
So before we take the next question, I just want to recognize that we are approaching 7 o'clock here. That's the official end of the meeting. However, we do have, we can occupy this room to 7:30, which is our hard stop, because we have to have this whole room cleaned out and the building shuts down. So I think at this point, I'm willing to keep going with questions, because clearly we want to talk about them.
Okay, how about scheduling another meeting?
We could certainly consider another.
You talked a lot about Fourth Street, Butler, but not a lot about Fourth Street. And what are you, how far up is the median? Are you planning the median to go on Fourth Street?
So north of the intersection specifically, or both sides?
Both sides.
So on the north side, it's going to go to the first driveway. I don't believe it's a named street right now, but into the first apartments and one of the new ones coming in. That will be where the raised median goes to, right? That's the current plan.
Yes.
And on the south side, we are planning to take it to that next, the new road coming in as part of Canyon Del Rio. That right now, that is the access. This is kind of a steep area too, that we plan to keep that median down to that intersection.
Okay, and then also, I think it was addressed a little bit before by the gentleman sitting next to me, but the bus stops that you have that seem to be so close to the roundabout, they seem really close to the roundabout. It is that just for purposes of knowing that there will be a bus stop there, or do you really plan to have them that close to the roundabout?
So working with Mountain Line, we are considering safety, vehicles. I know it's kind of been said already, you've heard this, but we are trying to consider all those different pieces. Can you see around the bus? Where is it safe for them to pull out? Can I get around the bus, etc. Working with Mountain Line, it's standard to try and keep as close to an intersection as possible with having multiple stops in case you need to hop on a different route, or you're coming up one road and need to hop on a different direction. That having those or as close as possible, considering safety, vehicles, pedestrians is the goal. So we're trying to work on that.
Okay, and then just a comment. We lived in an area that had a large intersection that had to be raised. I think it was more than 6 feet. And it was incredible how well it was done. And there was never a time when traffic was stopped. Anytime that they had to do some kind of a connecting type thing, it was done overnight. And it was amazing how that was done. I would hope that when you do this intersection, that you can accomplish that same type of situation, because it really was, to us, it was an engineering marvel, the way that they did it.
I was gonna talk on that for a minute, that it's something to be excited about with this project going through the construction manager at risk process. That this process won't be a, please put a dollar together, okay, you're the cheapest, build this. That's not the process for this, construction when it ultimately gets there. The contractor will have to actually submit a proposal. We're gonna address it this way, we're gonna take this on, and it's a qualifications-based selection process. So city staff will actually be able to evaluate this person, this group here is gonna be able to handle this construction. This group over here, I'm not so certain. And that actually will come up with phasing will probably be a very big piece of it. Like, can you do this? Like, without closing the road, because that's not acceptable.
So for the moment, let's pretend I'm a tractor trailer driver. And I'm at Little America. I'd like you to point out on the route how I'm going to get either east, west, north, south. And then I want to be over in the parking lot across from Little America. I'd like to see both of those routes and what a tractor trailer is going to need to do to negotiate.
Sure, I'll cover that.
Okay, both ways.
Yes, at the roundabout. So here's the fueling station here on screen. Semi trucks, tractor trailers, transfers will have to make a right. They will come down to the Harold Ranch roundabout. They will allow for the U-turn movement or a through movement. The truck can continue on, go to Fourth and on their way if they were heading that way. They can make a U-turn at the Harold Ranch roundabout and come into the parking or get back onto the interstate.
And if I'm in the parking lot, I can make a right and go onto the interstate, but if I want to make a left, I've got to go through the roundabout.
No, make a left. No, they cannot make a left.
You're make it right. So how did they go to fuel up on their way out of town? Across the street.
I gotta get out.
Working with Little America, always up for input on this too, especially if anyone that knows truck drivers or past or anything on that. Talking with the fueling station is that the typical procedure is to fuel up and rest, or they just rest. They said a lot of their traffic actually doesn't get fuel at all and just rests either in the back lot behind Little America or the parking lot. But otherwise, it's a fuel up, rest, hit the road.
So imagine the backup with all of those tractor trailers coming out and needing to go around the roundabout so that all the traffic going to Fourth and beyond is perhaps slowed down significantly.
So the semi trucks will still have to make a right. And if you're traveling straight forward, you're coming from the interstate heading east, they will need to make a right and ideally yield to you. I know we've seen challenges out there of making the lefts kind of quickly, but if you're there, if there's traffic, if it's busy, if it's the afternoon and there's passenger vehicles going this way, the semi truck has to find a gap and each one needs to stop. There won't just be 4 semi trucks leaving in procession and going down and blocking up the road. It may be possible, but hopefully it doesn't happen often. And that might be more of law enforcement at that point.
The RVs that are also gonna be. That part's.
Question for maneuverability or?
They all gonna be able to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Left anymore going into black parts with all the buses and everything that go in there for roundabout. They're all gonna go this roundabout.
So again, the access for a lot of these driveways have not been fully planned, fully designed, vetted. The current concept we have does maintain a left turn into Black Bart's current driveway. So they would not have to go all the way through the roundabout. That would accommodate. So anytime that we build any of these things, whether it's a roundabout, these turn lanes and so on, we have to consider all these different types of vehicles that will be using them. At the same time, we don't want to just overbuild things because that allows for people to do things that they're not supposed to do. We are trying to control and improve that safety so that people can't make those left turns over medians and so on. So it is up to us to come up with treatments that are going to strongly discourage those movements.
And I live in Forest Springs, and we got 3 access points to get onto 4th Street. Right now, we are able to turn left. If I understand you, then we would have to, there would be no left turns. I mean, the median would be solid all the way up to Sparrow, is that right?
None of these decisions have been made set in stone, but that's not currently what was just described. We're talking about going up to that first driveway.
Oh, the first, that's
Where the apartment.
So are you anticipating coming out of those three exit points, that we would be able to turn left?
Yes.
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 Sorry,
Just.
I had the mic. You can hear us now.
I live on 4th Street. My name is Sasha, and thank you again. I know we always said it, but I really appreciated your presentation this evening and just how engaged everybody's been in the conversation so far. I think I am curious in this design how you. I think that there's hard constraints that are being presented to us about this being a truck route, and we have to fit semis here. And I'm wondering how you are thinking about those constraints as they relate to non-vehicular users and vehicular users. Like the part that I'm thinking about is that you're talking about close to 2,000 new residences going in. Butler's already a very active commuter corridor. And those people are, every day navigating a truck stop that we have in the middle of town. And so we've allowed this truck stop to be like this big obstacle kind of that is barrier between Country Club, between our new developments and the people who live in Solier and everywhere else. And I wonder if you are thinking about other ways to treat this area to allow better access for residents to access our city.
So I think we tried pretty hard to improve those facilities for people other than vehicles through there. Certainly we have to accommodate all users. So we, as we discussed with that cross section earlier, we still have 2 travel lanes in each direction. We do have significantly, I'll call them enhanced bike and ped facilities on either side that would extend through Little America. At least to the on-ramp. The reality is this project has to stop somewhere. This is something we struggle with a lot because connectivity matters. And I think we recognize, and that was one of the exhibits we had, right? Like we can build this section, but it matters what's beyond it. I mean, we've had a number of comments about sidewalks that end currently and aren't connected. We're going to fill in those gaps. We're going to solve a lot of those problems. I don't know that I can solve, or I or we can solve all of those problems, but it is something that we're taking a very close look at and will continue to.
I just wonder with all the new development, I live on Harold Ranch across the river and fire escapes. Do we have routes for all these people that are going to be moving here? We had trouble in last winter getting out. So is that any consideration of this project or is it something else that we can do?
It is not part of this scope of this project. We do have to draw our line somewhere. It is the future. JW Powell will significantly change how that neighborhood accesses areas south of Flagstaff.
The civilized industrial world has roundabouts. We are finally getting used to roundabouts. Flagstaff does not know how to use roundabouts. And I appreciate and I would emphasize your effort to educate people in some dynamic, aggressive way on what the rules are at roundabouts. To wit, look at the Schweitzer roundabout, which has been modified because it was initially designed poorly, but with traffic, 2 lanes going onto Turquoise at the same time. And they finally put up signs, and I've seen lots of close calls at that point. So I appreciate that, and I would imagine that the larger the roundabout, the more room you have to make maneuvers and changes, etc. So I would suggest further educating those who design roundabouts to look at the world of roundabouts, because there's a lot to be learned. We just came back from Europe driving 600 miles
through cities, et cetera, saw two stoplights. Two stoplights. So I certainly approve and encourage the roundabout emphasis and hope we can carry it out in a reasonably accurate way so it works.
Thank you for that comment. We agree. I think design and all of those details are going to be extremely important between Burgess and Knightful, their support staff and roundabout experts and so on. I'm pretty confident that we're going to come up with a good roundabout that fits all of the needs. And we continue to work on refining and optimizing, right? As we said, these are all very preliminary. They're showing like general lane arrangements and so on, but nothing here is set in stone. These are just to convey the basics of how many lanes and so on. So we continue to work on that. Stay tuned as we work through this process. So thank you.
I just have a request for information to be shared with everyone who signed in here tonight on how much Little America is paying for any of these improvements to benefit their operation, because it certainly doesn't benefit the residents of the way that we are going to have to move to get anywhere. And so are they compensating the city for all the infrastructure that you're putting in on behalf of their trucks? And if not, why? And what more can they do to make it have an overpass? Something that allows their truckers to come over safely. Maybe they use some of their property, not just alignment property, but some of their property for a wider turn that allows regular traffic to proceed.
So we can certainly have the question or the conversation with Little America about providing some of those, I guess I'll call them additional property rights needed to support an overpass or something of that nature. As it stands now, Little America is not contributing to this project. We could spend a long time talking about why those things are the way they are, and it largely has to do with entitlement and zoning and how things develop. But currently, as it stands right now, I'm not sure that Little America would fully agree with you that they are receiving a big benefit from this, because they would prefer things to stay as they are, at least from an operational standpoint. I think we all recognize the safety challenges, and we're going to do the best that we can to address those and still maintain access to the adjacent businesses and so on. But as I mentioned, we have not gone into design. We are taking high-level preliminary looks at this, and this hasn't, frankly, been the focus. And so we communicate that this has not been the focus, that this is preliminary. We haven't made any decisions that are set in stone as far as what future access will actually look like.
Del Rio had to contribute toward the upgrades that they are realizing. Why not Little America?
It all has to do with development processes, rezoning, discretionary processes and so on. Again, I don't have time to speak to all those details, but it's the process that Canyon Del Rio went through in relation to this project that ultimately determines who has had to or has contributed cash in lieu to support some of the improvements along the frontage of their respective properties.
Can you go back to the previous drawing there with the yellow? Okay, so you consulted all of the commercial owners that are along Butler, and then you get to Sinagua Heights. And Sinagua Heights has not been consulted. And we are extremely affected because we've got a lot of young families who've moved in with young kids. They need to go to school down the hill or go down and play at Fox Glen Park. They need to get over to Sinagua Middle School. Some of them need to get up to the prep school. And we haven't been involved in that. Is that because we're private? You know, because hell, that right there ought to be a major point of what you're looking at. We can't cross the street. We can't get out of the street. Can't make a left turn. Traffic backs up from the school. And it's not safe. And it's not safe for us any time of the year. So how come we aren't bringing the private property in where you've got all the commercial interest in there?
At this point, as I described earlier, it's really related to whether or not we're going to change how you access your property. So as it relates to those commercial properties, we are changing whether someone can make left turns or right turns or so on in and out of their property.
So that's
As it-
safety issues.
It's driven by safety issues. As it relates to where you are located there, we aren't necessarily impacting how that intersection currently operates. We will be talking through that, and clearly, I understand that we need to continue the conversation about that specific issue. And at this point, I can convince you that we will look at it and that conversation will continue.
And
We'd be glad to meet with you.
let me be clear how that works. Coming now, you heard earlier that people are traveling 35, 45, 50 miles an hour. That's what happens when it goes from a single lane right now and they hit the double lane, they race. And so they're coming up the hill. You look to the left, you look to the right, you look to the left, you look to the right. You better look to the left again because they're coming so fast. Now with 2 lanes and they've broken loose from the roundabout there coming up, we're going to have, again, difficulty with these people that are, for whatever reason, competing for speed in that area. It's just what's happened. I've been there for 25 years. This has been going on the whole time. And so it is a safety issue, and you are impacting it by changing to a double lane further down. So now these people will be continuing on with that. It won't be a start of that speed from when you go from the single to the double lane.
And so I apologize if I said that we're not impacting people in the area. We clearly are. This is going to be a change throughout the corridor, right? I think there's going to be positive and potentially negative impacts through that. As I was just trying to convey, it's really about whether or not we are impacting how you currently access your driveway by means of access control. As we continue through this process, we will continue looking at your respective intersection. I don't know the outcome of that, but we will continue that process.